morning, everybody. It's about 7:30, and we're getting ready to get the day on with some coffee. Many of you have come to know me because of the car vlog, or the Ottawa trucker protest, or my potty mouth on Twitter. Today, we're going to the White House. Let's go to the White House, baby. I'm in DC to go to the White House because I got offered an opportunity to go do Media Row and ask some questions of some cabinet secretaries. And when one gets that type of invitation, one does not turn down that invitation. So I put on my nice suit and tie. By the way, this tie, just so nobody thinks I get Giorgio Armani ties just willy-nilly, this is the tie I got married in. What a journey it has been on. Going to go to the White House, Media Row, ask some questions to whichever cabinet secretaries we are given access to. I think Alina Habba is going to be there. Trump's, what's the word for it? The guy who, communications director. And I went to our locals community at vivabarneslaw.locals.com to get questions that the community wants answers to, and I'm going to get them in there by way of categories, and now I'm just going to document the day. This is DC. White House, right over there. Washington Monument, right over there. And now we get on with the day. All right, I've been here for 5 minutes and I'm already detained. They have us in a cage. I'm joking, people. This is the interim holding booth because they don't let you in any earlier than you're allowed to go in. But this is the White House behind us, right here. Look at that. It's beautiful. Zoom in a little bit. Oh, yeah, isn't that nice? Now we're just waiting for our time slot, which is 9:30. I'm allowed to record outside on the way in because it's all public, within the public view, and gonna get the questions in. Just heard a nice example of the Doppler effect there. Now we have been asked to leave the caged-in area, and all of the podcasters have to open up their stuff. They're going to get sniffed by dogs to make sure there's no explosives in there. We've got some usual faces here. There's Michael Knowles behind me. Sage Steele is somewhere in the back, and everybody's
Yeah, it's accurate. The scale is accurate. It's like a little handle. Beep, something like.
All right, now we just got through the gates. After security, the dogs sniffed all of our bags, and the Media Row is now walking down this beautiful road. That's Jack Posobiec in front of us. This is beautiful. The blossom trees are blossoming, or the cherry blossom, whatever. Those pink trees are blossoming. They're beautiful. I have no idea where we're going. This is the White House podcast row. Okay, so we're gonna mic check. Well,
Booyah. Mr. Harrison. Okay, the question is this. How do people reach the president in terms of getting messages to him? Or what's the best way in terms of like raising to his awareness what people think needs to be addressed in the world?
He reads the comments. So if you go on Truth Social and comment something under his post, there's a pretty good chance he may see it, and then he'll call someone like Caroline and be like, we need to do something about this. So he reads the comments, and that's probably one of the best ways. But you could also write a letter, send an email. You know, there's the traditional means through our Office of Presidential Correspondence, but he does read the comments of Truth. So make sure you follow him. And
people on the internet seem to think that he doesn't actually draft his own posts. I guess we call them truths on Truth Social. I think I know for a fact he does. Can you confirm to the world that he does in fact draft his own tweets?
Also, look at the time that some of these come out. At 4 a.m, we work hard, but at 4 a.m, we are 1 hour shy of waking up. So it's him. It's him.
The question is this: in our community, we have a locals community that's very, very interested in bodily health, food health.
Yes.
We see a lot of rogue states going absolutely nuts in terms of what we would call a persecution or prosecution of food independence, food autonomy. Is Trump familiar with what's going on with the Amos Miller Amish farmer in Pennsylvania?
I'm sure he is, and he also has RFK as his Secretary of Health and Human Services. So Robert Kennedy is in the president's ear when it comes to the necessity to make America healthy again. That's exactly what he's doing every single day. There's a reason why suburban moms voted for President Trump in historic numbers, because this is an issue that connects with them. Listen, my wife is a suburban mom. We got a 6-month-old. We are looking at the labels more so than we ever have because we want to raise a generation that's healthy. We have comorbidities in our family, diabetes, heart disease. How do we stem that early? How do we stop that early? It's all in the stuff that we consume. We got to read the labels. And it's funny, this is something that the left prioritized. These were the tofu eating people. These were the kombucha people. And now they make it seem like RFK is the crazy one. It's absolutely insane, but it's the priority of the president.
Well, it's hilarious. And I come from a family of a politically diverse family, and especially on my in-laws' side, where I won't name names, but they were hippies. And I say vaccine hesitant back in the 70s, anti-big government, anti-big pharma, and there's been a total reversal of the parties. But speaking on RFK, incidentally, hold on, I'm gonna forget the question that I had. It was food health. Oh goodness, I forgot my question.
Yeah, dyes, food dyes. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, this is the question. Okay, a lot of people are still very angry and skeptical about. I don't call it the vax. I'll call it the jab, the COVID shot. It's been not one of my critiques of Trump. It's one of the things that I wish, if he ever saw any of my posts, that he would address or take to heart. Trump is still out there celebrating Operation Warp Speed and the fruits of that. Now, and I can steelman his argument, which is Operation Warp Speed, in my view, was never intended to be what it became, which was, it was intended to find, if at all possible, cut the red tape so that people could hopefully find a vaccine for something that had never been, been able to be cured by vax. A lot of people are angry that the jab was mandated, people's lives were destroyed and ruined over it, and they harbor a certain amount of resentment when they hear Trump still touting Operation Warp Speed as a success, where a lot of people don't view it as a success.
Well, there's two things. One is the president, at the time, he needed to do something. The world was on fire, our country was on fire, we were looking for answers. And instead of doing nothing, the president got the best and brightest in the room and decided that at the time, the science said a vaccine was needed. So he did cut the red tape. This would have been, FDA would have still been looking at to see if this vaccine was safe, because FDA is just slow. He cut a lot of the red tape to make sure that we can do something about it. But the one thing he did not do was make sure that this was a mandate. When you look at the Democratic politicians that mandated you get a vaccine, that in order for kids to go to school, they needed a vaccine. Kids in DC, a lot of them minorities, were barred from getting an education if they did not get a jab. President Trump was vehemently against that. He also understood the science. He said that the main priority for these vaccines were who? People with comorbidities and old people. Someone like myself, I think I was 24 at the time, I didn't get the vaccine. I still haven't got the vaccine. Talk about overall vaccine hesitancy for our newborn, we aren't doing the same vaccines. Question, why is a newborn getting the hepatitis B shot? That is a sexually transmitted disease.
I was just having this discussion with my Uber driver yesterday, who was not anti-vaccine, but he certainly called that. I said, yeah, the argument for hepatitis B for a baby is if the mother has it.
Yeah.
If the mother has it, the mother knows that they can take other precautions. Yeah. But sorry, I cut you off there, because it's the most ludicrous thing to give a newborn a hepatitis B.
Right, and we got to look at the scheduling of vaccines, right? If you compare the scheduling in the 70s when my mom was growing up to right now, why are we vaccinating our children at a rate 3 times than what they did back in the day? And listen, my grandfather, he grew up in the 30s. He's still alive in 1990. He's 94 right now. You know, so
touch wood.
Right. So we need to look at all this, and this is what RFK is doing. And the president has given RFK a lot of latitude to say, listen, if this is a concern of the American people, address it. You have that authority to do so, and he's doing it right now.
And it's fantastic, because I laid out when he was running, it was a tweet and a blueprint. It's like, yes, the argument was always that we wanted to find something for the vulnerable, but it was never intended to suppress or supplant therapeutics, which it did. Right. Which not under Trump, but it was. The irony also is that they delayed announcing that the vaccine had been discovered until after Trump was out of office, because they didn't even want him getting credit for it. Does he plan? I mean, I know giving RFK Jr. latitude is one thing. People want to see people investigated, despite auto pen pardons. Is there any plan to go after Fauci, Bourla, Bonkel for what many believe, and I think is definitively the case, lying about their results, concealing the disastrous health effects of their testing. Is there any intent to go after them?
The president understands a lot of appetite for this, right? We have so many things to do. I mean, we're getting lawsuit after lawsuit after the simple executive orders we're trying to do. We have to work with Congress. Jim Jordan is one of the people that are out there that are making sure we have some accountability here. I don't want to get ahead of the president on any announcements. But one, we have to hold China accountable. This is something he's very committed to doing. Someone like Fauci needs to be held accountable. The president has been very clear on that fact. We need to go ahead and see exactly how we do this. But the key here now is how do we move our country forward, and that's the main priority of the President of the United States. We have a crisis on so many different levels. And while holding people accountable for the atrocities of COVID is a priority, we also have to make sure we secure the border, get our economy together, make sure that the food and drinks that we're consuming are healthy. We have so many things to do. The president does want to get a hold of holding people accountable. There's no news to make right now, but it's something that he's considering for sure.
Because I mean, the cases and the stories of where results were falsified. Maddie DeGarry, I don't know if you're familiar with Maddie DeGarry's situation. You've got the PrEP Act. I'm from Canada, so in Canada.
Oh, you guys had it worse than us.
Well, we had it worse, and I say the only better thing is we don't have the PrEP Act, so we can actually sue the pharma companies. They've got hold harmless clauses, but the courts are finding a way to keep them all immune. Going after China for the origins. I mean, that does that not come back to Fauci? I mean, is there a way to? Is the administration looking at Fauci, Drazik, I forget how you pronounce his last name, these doctors who participated in the gain-of-function research directly or indirectly in China and lied about it and concealed it? I mean, going after China might start World War III, but going after the responsible players in America might make Americans very happy. Fauci, Drazik, are they on the chopping block potentially?
Well, I don't have any news. I've talked to the Attorney General's team. We'll see what they're looking at, because some of the behavior does seem criminal to a lot of people. You have the email chains that were out there. We know that they lied. We know that the Biden administration colluded with big media to shut down any opposition to what they were doing when it came to COVID. There were some serious problems that we saw. The president wants to hold everyone accountable that's done anything wrong against this country. Right now, we are focused. We have so many problems. We've got a lot of problems.
This is true.
So we are working through how to achieve what the American people want, and we know there's a lot of people that voted for the president for this very issue, and promises made, promises kept.
Question here. Speaking of the problems, I did an interview with a Canadian journalist, Sam Cooper, who seems to believe that we are very close to a kinetic war, we being the U.S., close to a kinetic war with China. How risky is the situation currently with China? COVID's one thing. Panama Canal, infiltrating Canadian politics is another. What is the president's level of concern as to the potential for a kinetic conflict with China?
China was emboldened the last 4 years. They literally were probably the leader of the world. Joe Biden sat on his hands and let China really eat our lunch, but really let our allies eat our lunch too. President Trump is shaking up the world map again. He's now at the top of the pecking order, if you will. And of course, China's not going to like that. We're holding them accountable with tariffs. We are now dominating in spaces that China usually dominated. We are taking the semiconductors into our country. So there's a lot of things that are upsetting China right now, but I'll tell you this, the president doesn't want to see war. He wants to end all wars. He wants to make sure that America is the priority. He's looking out for our country. And in doing so, he's going to piss off a lot of people. He's pissing off Canada. He's pissing off Mexico. And of course, he's pissing off China as well. All this to prioritize the American people, and that's exactly what he's doing. It would be a mistake for China to do anything resembling a war to the United States. With Pete Hegseth as our Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States, China doesn't want the smoke.
Speaking of conflict and speaking of Pete Hegseth, I know Signalgate, you're getting a lot of questions about it. I got asked like the point blank question. There was a report that the staffer who allegedly added, or who suspectedly added, Jeff Goldberg to the chat is a guy named, I forget his first name, Wong. The staffer for, are you able to confirm whether or not it's actually Mr. Wong who was the individual, the staffer for Mike Waltz that added JG to the group chat?
Mike Waltz has been out there, he's asked and answered the question. He takes full responsibility. for the mistake that was made regarding Signalgate. When I was looking through the messages, what I saw was a senior team that was committed to the president's agenda, that even went as far as to pray for the mission and worked to kill terrorists. The end goal of that mission was a success. We are killing deadly terrorists that are causing havoc all across our world, especially through crucial shipping lanes. The other thing I want to remind the American people is that for the people calling for accountability, we had Political Playbook today say, completely ignore the fact that Joe Biden led this disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan as if it didn't happen, demanding accountability from the president and Hegseth and Mike Waltz. When they didn't demand that same accountability, when we lost 13 members of our service due to the hands of this haphazard withdrawal, we killed terrorists as a result of this operation. We should be celebrating that. When everyone gets caught up in the process of what happened, we've admitted that this should have never happened. We're working to make sure it never happens again. That should be the main focus. Mike Waltz, to his credit, has taken full accountability. He's not throwing anyone under the bus. We are focusing on how we make sure this never happens again, and we're focused on killing more terrorists and bad people.
Well, it was my analysis also reading it. I didn't see anything classified in it. I saw respectful discussion and almost support. And like I say, you don't criticize your boss publicly, and you don't even criticize him privately. You have respectful discussions. The content, as far as I'm concerned, is not the shocking part at all. My concern, and you'll tell me if it's an irrational concern, is the potential for sabotage from within. There's a lot of people who still don't like Trump, even within his own administration. We saw it in 2016. Is there any concern that this was not an accident, but rather potential internal sabotage?
Listen, we're looking at it. We're looking to make sure that this never happens again, and we want to understand how this happened. We're looking at it. We already said Doge, White House counsel are looking at this. We're making sure this doesn't happen again. This isn't 2016. We don't have John Bolton sneakily in the building. We have a committed team of people that love this country, love the president, and love his agenda, and that's exactly what you saw on that thread. Everyone was supportive of the mission, and it was executed flawlessly. Had it not been for Jeffrey Goldberg, this would be a non-story. But you never know, because the Democrats, they seem to be opposing everything we do. They don't want when we deport terrorists.
Deporting a TDA terrorist
So maybe
is a problem.
killing terrorists is something that they don't want us to do either. Who knows? The Democratic Party is absolutely insane right now.
Question on there's a lawsuit filed in terms of a FOIA demand in terms of preserving those signal messages.
Yeah.
You're going to comply, going to contest? What's the plan?
White
with
House
that?
counsel is looking at this. We are at a situation where, of course, we have to follow all the laws in the books. The executive branch is held to a high standard. We're going to follow that. We're going to follow the law. But White House counsel is looking at all of our options, and we'll see what happens.
One last question. Trump's first presidency, I believe the Republicans controlled everything for a short period of time.
Yeah.
One of the concerns, criticisms in retrospect was that Trump didn't take any meaningful, important action to preserve freedom of speech online, to prevent government censorship, manipulation of media. Second time around, is he going to do something, and what does he have planned to solidify and protect freedom of speech?
You saw it firsthand. This is why Truth was created. He was censored, not just on Twitter at the time, but also on Facebook and on YouTube. He's going to make sure that never happens to any American ever again. What we saw was devastating to the First Amendment. It was unconstitutional behavior. The president prioritizes the First Amendment. This is why everyone here, this is a full room of podcasters. We are having cabinet officials, administration officials here speaking with you all, engaging with brand new audiences. Transparency has always been a fabric of this administration, both the first time and now. We're going to prioritize that. And listen, the Department of Justice is not going to allow the infringements of any rights, especially the First Amendment. It's just not going to happen in this administration.
And I lied when I said last question, but I'm going to ask it to somebody else. Is President Trump familiar with the Brook Jackson Keaton lawsuit against Pfizer?
That is a good question. I will ask. I am not sure. He's familiar with a lot. This is the consumer of all things.
There's a big one. It's the Keaton fraud lawsuit filed by a whistleblower, Brook Jackson, and the Biden administration came in after years of litigation and killed the lawsuit. They took it over to end it.
Interesting.
And so it was my goal to bring that to Trump's attention. So,
hey,
Keaton, Brook Jackson.
I will make a mental note, and we'll talk to our team.
I'm going to ask Alina Habba as well when I get her.
She's the lawyer.
Yeah,
She'll know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Harrison, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
And
for
I'm going to
coming
show
in.
the room just to see everybody. You can see what full transparency looks like. This is the media row and all of the podcasters here. Harrison, my setup is not quite as beautiful as the other
No, it's
one,
great.
but it's good.
Hey.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Great
sir.
to meet you.
Good to see you.
All right, so now we are. This is how it's going to look. We're going to be live. Kaelan, first of all, David, nice to meet you. Well, nice to meet you in person.
That's right.
So explain to the world who may not know who you are, your position within the administration.
So I'm the Deputy Communications Director here at the White House, and my portfolio is most of the digital communications. So everything you see on the White House social media pages, that comes through my shop, and then we do all the media fairs, booking new media stuff. So bringing folks like yourself here today, making sure we've got all these cabinet officials cycling through and speaking to new audiences, because I think that was very important, is obvious. That was very important here this last election. This is something we want to continue to do over and over, because this is the most transparent administration in U.S. history, and a big part of that is that you meet the people who are deciding the policies that impact your lives. I think that's important. We just did 4 years where no one knows anything about how anything was done.
We're finding out how it was done. May or may not have been totally
Maybe
legal.
we don't want to know everything, right?
It's amazing. I mean, this experience has been amazing. It's learning from me, because it is wild to have access to cabinet ministers. It's unscripted. Like there's nobody told us what to say, and there's no caveat to that.
Yeah.
And I think I asked some, not always easy questions to my first interviewer, who was Harrison. Now, so you're in charge of the media. Have you gotten over the speed bump of the Epstein document, which led to some backlash on social media?
I think we've gotten over the hump, and I think we're learning, and we're going to continue to be transparent and find creative ways to go out there and get these stories injected into the news cycle, and reward new media folks. Right? I think that's what's important. You guys do a better job. I'll give you a good example, David. Last week, the president announces here from the Oval Office a new next generation fighter jet, the F-47. You know how many questions people asked there about the F-47?
I'm going to say zero.
I think someone maybe mentioned it offhand. So
You know why?
important.
It's a concept that it's too complicated for people to understand. They won't have a question. They won't have an understanding. They won't have an opinion.
But this isn't even complicated. This is like, here's a pretty picture of a new jet we're putting out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that awesome? What does that say to the warrior ethos in our country, that we're here to give them the best tools to go out there and do their jobs? No one had a single question about it, man.
Well,
the way we address this is by giving access to the people who are impacted by these policies, who watch your audience, who is not a traditional, I'm assuming, CNN. I would hope it's not a traditional
Not
CNN
many CNN
audience.
followers here.
And I think that's really important, because you're going to do the due diligence and actually ask questions.
Well, I'm going to
about
ask
things.
one question. F-47 means that there were 46 iterations before, or is there another reason why it's 47 for President Trump 47?
I just think it's a beautiful work of timing, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so I'll ask the straight up question. I didn't get to ask Harrison. I think I'll ask Alina Habba when I interview her afterwards. What is the status of the release of the Epstein documents? I know that there's a bunch of considerations. I'm not going to be too hard on an administration who is literally answering letters from God at this point. People get their immediate suspicions. I think there's some sinister reason for which they didn't get what they wanted. Is there a time frame on any future release, disclosure of previously unreleased documents?
That would be a question that would be better suited for like a Bondi, Attorney General Bondi, or Alina might know a little bit more than I would. I do know that the president has been committed to being as transparent about all this as possible. You saw we just did the JFK file release. I think that was last week. Every week feels like a very long time sometimes.
The JFK release also disappointed people in terms of what they wanted to find that was not there, but the truth is almost.
We released everything that we had without redactions, and I think that's a big deal. Previous administrations they wouldn't have fulfilled their commitment on that, and I'm proud of the team for executing that very quickly. On Epstein, I don't have eyeballs on it personally, but I do know that we've been committed to bringing awful human beings to justice. Just last night or this morning, MS-13 head was grabbed and got by the DOJ and by DHS. We're committed to getting the bad guys.
And
I know.
the ACLU's already filed the injunction. To
Oh,
have
I'm
them
sure. I'm
released.
sure that had done beforehand, man. But in all honesty, I think a lot of the people online, they see what happened there and they see what's going on, and it might be taking a little bit. We want to be, I'm sure, thorough as possible, but we are committed to getting the bad guys. And I see a lot of like speculation online.
This is going to be a question you may not be able to field either. I was talking about that Judge Boasberg issuing his injunctions, people freaking out, due process for each and every alleged gang member to see if they're actually affiliated with TDA. Do you know what the administration is implementing by way on its own end by way of due diligence? Like, people think they're just nabbing anybody not speaking English from a Walmart, and I've literally seen posts like that. Do you know what the process is to like even designate someone as a TDA member for the purposes of arrest and deportation?
It's not. We're not doing the Selena Gomez approach. She cried because she thought anyone of a certain descent was going to get deported.
She did it in English also, by the way, which was very weird.
That's funny. We won't get into it. We did do a really good video where Angel Moms reacted to that, and just absolutely just broke the internet and brought some really good points. But I'm not very well versed on that specifically, and I'm not a lawyer either. I may have stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I do know that the administration is doing everything in their power to make sure that we're bringing the right people to justice, and I think that's what's most important. That's what I think we want to focus on.
That's what Trump was elected to do, and I've got a question for Alina about the...
David, dude, this has been the easiest job in the world. You say this is what he's elected to do. It's like the American public is our wives, and they just wrote a honeydew list for us in the morning, and we're just checking things off. It's incredible.
It's first of all, like I'm biased, partial, whatever. It's been amazing. It's been transformational in the first 3 months, 2.5 months. It's beyond anything that anyone could have imagined. You'll never satisfy everybody. There will always be people who are naysayers because that's the niche that they live in. It's always a naysayer. The tariffs, and I know this. I know I heard you talking about it before. We were talking about it before we went live. Does Trump? I'm taking flack because I say Trump doesn't really want Canada as a 51st state. I mean, he may not know that he doesn't want it if he's being serious. Is he being serious about it, or is it needling? Is it negotiation tactic? Is it putting people in their place for the purposes of sitting down at a table?
Well, I think to everyone who freaked out about the initial, and you've got a Canadian bag. You're big
Canadian.
up there, right? I will say there's a 3-word phrase that I will repeat anytime the president does something even remotely controversial, but specifically in regards to tariffs or anything on the econ front. Let Trump cook. It's that simple. You saw this was a national security issue for us. The flow of fentanyl into our country is still, unacceptable, and the president is willing to do everything in his power to put an end to that. So what I'll say is, this is yet another tool to get people to take issues seriously. As far as a 51st state thing, I'll let the president speak about that.
For those who don't know what "let Trump cook" means, it means let someone do their thing, let them do what they're best at in terms of performance.
David, I've been around. So I think I'm one of the longest serving Trump guys. I've been here since 2015.
How old are you? You're 25 years old?
33. You're
Okay.
a 3-month-old at home now. I'm growing up.
Congratulations.
We're all growing up in here. But I've been here and just let him cook. It's been the solution to everything. The framing by oppositions to the president's agenda has always been, oh, it's chaos. Oh, it's nonsense. It doesn't, you don't know where he's going. He's got the steering wheel of the car, and we don't know which direction we're going in. It's never been the case. It's chaos and confusion and obstruction that they've generated time after time after time, hoax after hoax after hoax, and the president has been firm in where we're going with everything.
People do say when it comes to the tariffs, the fentanyl from Canada is a pretext because only 1% of fentanyl grabbed comes from Canada. The rest comes over from the Mexican border. I recently had a journalist on named Sam Cooper who he needs to get on Rogan, get him on Rogan. And he was talking about the fact that the Trump administration is so weary of the Canadian government because of foreign interference that they have information that they almost don't or feel uncomfortable disclosing to the government because it would fall into the hands of potentially enemies that have infiltrated the Canadian government. What is the level of concern of the Trump administration of actual real clear and present dangers coming out of foreign interference, foreign infiltration in the Canadian government?
Well, I can point to one example specifically that I'm very well versed in that I think gives a lot of conservatives here in the States pause. I think you would agree with this. I take a look back at the debanking of the truckers a few years ago and the controversy surrounding their free speech rights. And I take a look at, whether or not you would want to do business with someone who's espousing those values. If you look at running the country as running a business. And I think the president has made very well thought out determinations based off of this kind of information. And to back up to the fentanyl point, I mean, the question that I would ask anyone who asked me that is, how could you put a price on even a single life, right? If even 1% of fentanyl is coming to the border, that's too much. And so we will use everything at our disposal to make sure that not a single American life is taken by this. And as far as foreign interference or whatever, I would say you don't even need to look that deep, man. Like things like the censorship, things like Trudeau has got a record of nonsensical, radical policies and rhetoric that don't jive with our, with what we're doing here, right? So I think that would explain everything.
Well, now that you mentioned it,
You're getting a little deeper into it than I think you need to.
No, I want it now that you mentioned it because it's wild, and I'm gonna maybe get a soundbite. You need to get. Oh, okay. Well, let me get this real quick. Trump has recently praised the liberals and said it's easier to work with liberals, i.e. Carney, the new guy that's been anointed, than Pierre Poilievre. Who would he rather work with as far as a Canadian government would go?
I think I don't know enough about the specifics of each individual, so I'll tell you the type of person the president would prefer to work with, based on my experience of being around. Obviously, I'm not speaking for him in this, but he wants to work with someone who loves their country, is interested in kind of emboldening their people to go out there and live their version of what we would call the American dream, right? And I think that's very important. President Trump is someone who loves his country so dearly, he was nearly shot and killed for it. And I think that's a very important thing to remember. Deep down in here, he's almost like a parent who's watching their kid playing soccer and loves them so much, all the other parents don't like him, right? That's kind of like how I equate it. Those are the type of people that I think he loves to work with. And so, whichever Canadian official that might be, or if someone's looking to make headway or whatever, that's kind of the character profile for someone that I think the president jives with. Yeah.
I can tell you, the conservative people out there might want to clip that snippet and send it to Pierre Poilievre. Sir, thank you very much. It was fantastic.
Thank you, brother. Of course. Great being here.
Awesome. Thank you. This is it. We're live. We're not live now, but this is going to air unedited live. Okay. Ms. Habba, it is very nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you.
I know you from the interwebs and from lawsuits that I've been following for a very long time.
We have lawsuits? I didn't know that.
I don't know if you've ever come across any of my tweets on
I have.
the New York. Okay, good. Well, I don't know if that's good. I don't even know where to start. You were Trump's attorney in what I call the New York Dipple Judge Engoron. No, it was in the Kaplan case.
I've been his attorney on way more than that, and I was his general counsel for a short period of time, right before I joined the campaign. So. Okay,
but I need to know, like, the one you were involved in was the E.J. Carroll sexual abuse one.
Well, no, I was involved in a lot. So Summer of Zervos, the Apprentice star suit that got dismissed, Michael Cohen's suit that got dismissed 3 times. He tried to get it up to the Supreme Court, denied. I was on Letitia James's case. I was one of the attorneys there. And then I sat in on the hush money case, and I was general counsel of his PAC. And Savage, another case.
This is.
I could go on and on.
No, well, I mean, the ones that we've been following.
Yes,
this is
the big ones were like the hush money case, which I was not the criminal attorney, but the civil side, Letitia James, this was probably one of the biggest, and E.J. Carroll.
This is the number one question that I get in our community is what can be done to rein in these rogue judges? Because it's not partisan to say that.
I think there has to be ethics investigations. If you have to ask, you have to affirmatively request recusal of these judges. The problem you have is the judges themselves, and we did this many times for President Trump, the judges themselves will then not recuse, even though they should recuse for conflicts of interest. If You have a family member who's making money on the side.
This is Marchand's
That's
daughter.
not okay. If you have, and we asked for recusals there, if you have Judge Kaplan on the E. Jean Carroll case, who's former law clerk, was sitting on opposing counsel Roberta Kaplan's side, and you married her and were the officiant of the wedding. You should recuse, didn't recuse. You know, there were just constant things that were so baffling to me in the New York justice system. Judging Gorin, not a commercial division judge, taking a civil division case past the statute of limitations, disregarding the statute of limitations, using a law that's never been used. I could go on for days and days and days, but we had a really rough 4 years, and what they put that man through, there's nobody more deserving to be behind the Resolute desk right now.
But I mean, concretely, people say like above and beyond, and I don't advocate for it full stop, and I always advocate against it. And beyond street justice, the question that people are saying is we can't get justice in the courts.
You know, the problem is you have a lot of these that are tenured. You have a problem that you have to have, first of all, if you see something, say something. You have to, they do all report to the bar. There is a judicial oversight committee. They have judicial ethics that they have to follow. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't work either. And when in doubt, send Alina Habba outside and I'll just start screaming. But, you know.
So, what about, who's going to be what's her name? The lawyer, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name now. In terms of potentially going after state judges for civil rights violations at the federal level, is there a reasonable legal, Harmeet Dillon, I'm sorry, I couldn't remember her name. Is there a reasonable prospect of the potential of being able to do that?
I hope so. Look, we need reform. There has to be something done. And Harmeet's so brilliant. If there's anybody that understands the ins and outs and intricacies of the Constitution, of how to navigate those types of situations, and there's so many different types of lawyers. I think people assume one lawyer is any lawyer, right? But she is the person that will do it. I think that there should be reform. I think that you have to look at some sort of accountability because we can't allow this to happen on either side. I don't really care what your politics are. You should never be afraid to walk into a court and say, who appointed that judge? Who appointed that judge? That shouldn't matter who appointed that judge. If I'm appointed as a judge, it doesn't matter. If I'm appointed as a U.S. attorney, it doesn't matter who appointed me. I need to go after criminals. I need to hold investigations ethically and use my office for the greater good of the state of New Jersey. And there needs to be more of that.
Well, now so your function now, you're going to be the...
interim U.S. attorney.
Amazing.
Yes.
What, if for those who may not know, I'm a Canadian schnook. What are your obligations and your duties and your
obligations? Right. So, I mean, I will say duties are vast and large. I am the chief federal prosecutor for the state of New Jersey. So I run all that federal crimes, anything that would fall under DEA, ATF, FBI. I'm part of the DOJ, so working with Cash, Pam, and whoever local law enforcement is, and I'm going to be giving them their power back next week. I can't wait to invigorate them because for years the men in blue were really afraid to go after people, and now that I'm coming to New Jersey, I can tell you that won't be the case anymore. Now, you're on notice if you're a criminal in New Jersey. Just be careful.
A bad day to be a criminal.
Bad day to be a criminal in New Jersey. It is a bad day to be a criminal.
This is a question which you might be able to explain to the Canadian schnook again.
Yes.
I've always understood there's three branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial, and each keeps the other in check.
Separation of powers.
Separation
is a beautiful
of powers.
thing.
The only problem right now is it seems that the judicial is running the executive.
Yes, it's funny, and they say that we are doing that to them and that there should be a separation of powers. No, that's not the way it works. The president has authority to do like the illegal immigration thing, the terrorist, sending them away, Article 2. And all of a sudden you do again have judges that are tying up, and there has to be checks and balances. That is part of our process, but this is not a checks and balances situation. What this is they are using their offices for political animus, for political motives, and if you have that, that's a real problem. So you can't be doing it. Like I said before, if you are in a robe, if you are given a power invested and you put your hand up and you say, as I will tomorrow, that you are going to respect the law, the Constitution, and the United States of America and all the powers that be with that, then you better be serious about it. But they have to be, we're going to fight tooth and nail, but it's quite honestly, you want to talk about DOJ, it's a waste of government money, taxpayer money, that we are putting all these resources on stopping a man who's just trying to make America better, who's trying to make America safer. I can't understand a judge that wouldn't want illegal immigrants out of this country who are criminals, illegal immigrants who are killing people or part of violent gangs. I would love to sit down with them and ask them what their thinking is behind stopping them.
The joke in our community was turn the planes around and then ship them right to Judge Boasberg's front door.
Yeah, literally. It's like when they wanted to have immigrants in, and then they would go knock on the door and say, "Okay, well, you said that you were going to house them. Will you house them in your home?" No, send them to the Roosevelt Hotel.
No, and when they get to Martha's Vineyard with DeSantis, they ship them back within one night and talk about how they
all of a
enriched
sudden
their
they
lives.
didn't want that in Martha's Vineyards or the Hamptons. Yeah.
The question was the illegals. Oh shit! I'm going to forget the question now. Judge Boasberg is arguably, but not arguably, a thoroughly corrupt judge. Is there? I won't ask you to affirm or deny. It's true. The question is this: a lot of people ask, what can be done to undo the District of Columbia? Like some people argue it should not exist.
The current USA in DC is Ed Martin, who is so great and vigorous and has everything in his sight. He's somebody that I really think has not held back at all as a U.S. attorney. You can do as much or as little as you want. He has done as much as possible. And I'm sure, we have to look at why are all of a sudden these judges that are so anti-Trump somehow continuously getting Trump cases. It's very strange.
How many judges are there in Boasberg's district?
I don't know. This is not that's an Ed Martin question.
No, it is.
And I've only lived here 2 months. No, but you know what the situation is? It's not even about that. It's about the fact that, and this happened with us in New York, why do we keep getting the same judges that are so anti-Trump? How do we keep getting in the pool of judges? Because when I worked for a judge in Essex County, the place that I'm going back to work for now, my first job out of law school, I was a law clerk for a judge in Essex County, the head judge in the civil division. And when I worked there, the docket was selected randomly. It wasn't that certain people, now unless you're a commercial division and that's your channel and you get the commercial division cases, but you are given a random docket and you have to deal with it. This is not what is happening. We are seeing a consistent pattern of the same judges, Judge Chukin, another one in DC, getting these J6 cases. Why did she get President Trump's J6 case? It doesn't make sense, and there has to be a look into what is happening there.
Let me see what else is going on in the administration. You're going to go back to New Jersey.
Yes.
Some people are going to say, fight fire with fire. Others are going to say, don't fight fire with fire. Mm-hmm. For what they went after Trump, artificially inflating prices for beneficial interest rates from a bank. Letitia James is in hot water in New York in terms of potentially being involved in very similar fraud. Mm-hmm. Do you go after some of these players in New? I mean, I don't know what businesses the George Soroses of the world, the Letitia James, have involved in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Bridge and tunnels.
Do you start? Is it not time for maybe a red attorney general or district attorney to start?
Well, you have a red USA now. I mean, you're not red, you're not blue, you're a USA. And I will tell you that if anybody, I don't care who you are, has committed a crime, has colluded against a president, has colluded against anybody, has corruption, has any of those things, and it falls in my jurisdiction, you're on notice.
When do you get confirmed or sworn in?
Tomorrow.
Were there Senate hearings? Did I miss them?
No, it's an interim position.
Okay.
And then I'll decide whether I want to stay or come back, and we'll make that decision, and then I will have to go through confirmation.
Amazing.
Thank
it's
you.
very nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you. So knowledgeable about all my stuff.
Oh, there's more we could have done, but they're wrapping everything up.
Yes,
so
exactly.
We should probably start.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you.
So that is the end of it, people. Now we're going to go get some B-roll in DC, show those blossoming cherry blossom trees. This is now what is left of the media row. People are packing up and leaving. There's a fine gentleman right over there. Thank you very much for the microphone, sir. We'll learn for the next time, as we have. I've already placed an order on Amazon, but this thing right here, damn lifesaver. All right, B-roll coming up. All right, we are leaving the Dwight Eisenhower building now. That is it behind us. And security's giving me some looks here, Drew. All right, that was fantastic. So we just ran into Tulsi Gabbard, and you meet the people who are actually literally in charge of running the world right now, and the burden that they bear with the weight of the world on their shoulders. Look at the beautiful tree behind me. Oh, that's so nice. This is beautiful. It's physically, aesthetically beautiful, but it's Washington.
Yeah, I'm going up. I've done my job for this country, but I'll be dead. I'm not putting up to the game. What you there don't get read?